Okay, that's really all I have to say. So, let me pass this off to Christopher Spidey. Hello. Y'all yell if I'm not loud enough, alright? Alright. First, to all of those who believe fear-mongering would work in the 2008 election, I have some fear of my own to spend. Imagine what our state would be like if between 3.5% and 5% of our tax revenue suddenly disappeared. Imagine what your favorite restaurant or bar would be like if you walked in and no one was there to serve you. Imagine if you called your family physician or your family lawyer and they didn't return your phone call. Imagine if you were inundated every day, day in, day out, with protests, marches, sit-ins, and the like, and having to explain that to your friends and your family and your out-of-state relatives. On November 4th, the majority of the gay and lesbian community celebrated the victory of President Barack Obama.
Yeah!
But subsequently, we mourned the passage of Proposition 8 in California, as well as similar measures in 3 other states. Our neighbors to the northeast even went so far as to ban gays and lesbians, as well as single people, I might add, from adopting or fostering children. A little closer to home, Oklahomans decided to oust a completely qualified gay man from a statewide office in lieu of an admitted forgerer. Helpful lesbian? I don't know, thank you. And also, Oklahoma House District 84 chose to re-elect to public service Sally Kern, a person who called gays and Muslims, you'll recall, worse than terrorists. So to all those people in this great state who felt the need to interfere with the rights of a group of people who, until now, have been very conciliatory, taking only what was given and seldom asking for more, this message is addressed partially to you. And also to those who sat idly by, waiting and allowed this to happen, waiting for some Selma or Birmingham-like moment from which to spring forth into action. I have a message for you too. Stop waiting, because one of the only things that the closed-minded bigots who feed off this fodder have learned to do right is not to use the old tactics of sicking the dogs or the hoses on us. These proponents of discrimination have learned the lessons of history past, to use the institutional structures of our society to promote their agenda through less aggressive, though no less harmful means. While I do not purport to speak for the entire Oklahoma queer community, I think I can say with a fair amount of confidence that collectively we have had enough. We're ready to do whatever is necessary to ensure equal rights to marriage, to family, to government benefits, to all of the opportunities available to each and every other Oklahoman. And now I think it'd only be fair to explain how we intend on accomplishing this. First, the gay community is in desperate need of fresh, young, innovative leadership.
Yeah!
What we've learned from this past election is that despite as much hard work as it entails, grassroots leadership works. The queer movement has experienced this sort of leadership in places like DC and New York and LA, but not in places like Oklahoma City or Tulsa or Lawton or Woodward or Muskogee and all the other cities in this great state that we call home. Over and over again, we have seen that the data suggests that the strongest determinant of how a voter identifies on queer issues is age. So it only seems obvious that the best way to invigorate and excite pro-equality voters between the ages of 18 and 30 is to give these voters a 30-something peer mentor to work under. Someone these youths and young adults, whether gay, straight, or otherwise, can look up to as a model for future public interest in grassroots work. 2. We need to go guerrilla. Up until now, the community has worked extremely hard for the strides that have been made, but we need to work smarter instead of harder. In lieu of marching in parades or lobbying on a deaf legislature, unwilling to move even an inch on our issues, we need to be more aggressive. For example, we could follow Melissa Etheridge's lead and stop paying our taxes. Or we could follow in the footsteps of Dr. King and commit acts of civil disobedience. Ultimately, what we need to make note is that if we are going to be treated as a subclass apart from the citizens of the United States, then we will no longer agree to be bound to the duties that are payment for such a privilege. Government, after all, is merely a social contract, and when one party has materially breached their duties under a contract, the other party may unilaterally rescind his or her obligations. Now, I understand that some of my more risk-averse friends may not be as amenable to this sort of behavior. However, there are even ways that risk-averse seekers of equality can become involved in this new guerrilla approach. For example, each and every queer person here today could go and apply for a tax exemption based on your sexual orientation. If you were denied such an exemption, which as you undoubtedly would be, then you would have the right to initiate a lawsuit against this state. This is only one of a new infinite number of untested avenues to achieve the end result we all want to see. When we get to a point, as in California, where every business, every person, every entity that worked or contributed to take our rights away is boycotted, when we hit them in their pocketbooks, this is when we will begin to see the real change we need in our state. Finally, take no prisoners. One of the largest obstacles in any human rights struggle is separating the cause from the people working towards the cause. Now please, don't take this as belittling the glorious accomplishments of those before us who have taken us this far in our movement. What I am suggesting, however, is that we be willing to go further than we ever have before. We must begin to ask ourselves tough questions about some of the people who we love, admire, and respect. Because as far as we have come, we have so much farther to go. And at this point, we must recognize that it is no one person, no one legislator, no one church, no one school, not even one political party is delivering to us the results that we need. So let this moment put every person listening, friend or foe, on notice. This movement has nowhere to go but forward, and we're ready to take any action necessary to bring equality to Oklahoma. We will meet you in our schools, and we will meet you in our restaurants, the stores, the bars, and the playgrounds where our children play with your children. And we will meet you in our churches because some of us kneel next to you in common prayer. And yes, we will meet you on the steps of City Hall or wherever else we need to take this fight. And we will meet you there as many times for as many hours and as many days as it takes to get what we need. And where civil disobedience is required, we will act and we will take our punishment. Because unlike our opponents who may not abide by the rule of law, while they may trample over that founding creed that all men are created equal, we have the respect and the love of country that requires adherence to such principles, even when it may not be fair for us to do so. We will win this battle, not just because we have to, but because, as Dr. King once famously said, we have come to the tough spot to remind America of the fierce urgency of now. This is no time to engage in the luxury of cooling off or to take the tranquilizing drug of gradualism. Now is the time to make the real promises of democracy. Now is the time to rise from the dark and desolate valley to the sunlit path of justice. Now is the time to lift our nation from the quicksand of injustice to the solid rock of brotherhood. Now is the time to make justice a reality for all. So will today be the day that you drop the gauntlet? Every day that passes is another day we will have to justify to our children and to our grandchildren why we discriminated, why we persecuted, why we allowed such bigotry to pervade and brutalize our queer brothers and sisters. Will today be the day? Only you can decide that. One last page, I promise. It's windy out here today, isn't it? All right. So I'll leave you with the quote by Bayard Rustin, thank you, a gay African-American who worked with Dr. King and others to organize the 1963 March on Washington, one of the biggest and most influential civil rights demonstrations in history. Despite Rustin's efforts to organize the march, he was told he couldn't take part in it because he was openly gay. Rustin said, when an individual is protesting society's refusal to acknowledge his dignity as a human being, his very act of protest confers dignity on him. Enough is enough. Today is the day for me. Now is the time to make real the promises of democracy. I hope you'll join me.